Hello everyone, welcome to Apti Plus Academy for Civil Services. This is a video on daily news and editorial analysis, which I'll be covering from the Hindu and Indian Express. So the most important news and editorial of the day that is relevant for both prelims and mains examination perspective will be discussed in this session. Let's get started with news topic list. Today is 28th of July. The first news is Supreme Court uphold enforcement directorate powers under the PMLA, that is Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Second important news, that is bill to create statutory power framework for the NADA, that is National Anti-Doping Agency. Third, Center to amend the Warehouse Act. We'll see the detail about this as well. Fourth, Center initiate work on consumer spending survey, which is done on every 5 years. And the last is an editorial, a digital pharmacist, a very brilliant editorial that will give you an insight about the e-commerce that is operating in the pharmaceutical sectors. Apart from the news and editorial, at the end of this video, there will be MCQ based questions. These questions will be based on current affairs that will help you for the upcoming prelims examination. So without any further delay, let's get started. And if you are new to our channel, do not forget to subscribe Apti Plus Academy for Civil Services on YouTube. If you like this video, if you find this video informative and helpful, do not forget to press a like button. So starting with the first news of the day, that is Supreme Court uphold enforcement directed power of arrest under the PMLA. This particular news is important for General Studies paper 2 under the topic structure, organization and function of executive and judiciary. So recently the Supreme Court has upheld the enforcement directed power जो कि वो PMLA के अंदर derive करती है. So it says that these power derived under the PMLA is not arbitrary in nature. So what is a power that is there for the enforcement directorate? It has a power to arrest, it has a power to attach the property, and it has a power to search and seize to prevent any kind of money laundering. So this is a power that is given to the enforcement directorate under this law, and the Supreme Court has categorically said that this law is not arbitrary, right? Recent में आपने देखा है कई ऐसे cases हुए हैं जहाँ पे leaders को enforcement directorate ने questions किए. So the Supreme Court has called PMLA or law against a scourge of money laundering and not attached will against the rival partition or dissenters. तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने ये नोट किया कि ये सिर्फ इसलिए नहीं है कि जो पावर्स में गवर्नमेंट है वो अपोजिशन के खिलाफ यूज कर रही है. एक्चुअली ईडी इज ऑल्सो डूइंग द वर्क, राइट? सो some of the prominent cases we have seen were the top oppositions, which include leaders from Congress, even Rahul Gandhi, Sonia Gandhi. This leader were again questioned. We are not concerned about the leaders, we are more concerned about the topic. And even some news also appearing from the TMC about the scam. एंड जो नेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस के जो लीडर्स हैं उनको भी मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग को लेकर के ईडी ने क्वेश्चंस किए हुए हैं. नाउ व्हाट इज द ऑब्जेक्टिव ऑफ पीएमएलए? अगर पीएमएलए की बात करें क्या कोर ऑब्जेक्टिव होती है इसकी? सो पीएमएलए सीक्स टू कॉम्बैट मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग. जो सोर क्राइटेरिया है पीएमएलए के टू stop the money laundering in India, and it has three main objectives. What are the three main objectives? The first objective is to prevent the control of money laundering. This is the first and foremost priority. Second is to confiscate and seize the property obtained from the laundered money. जो भी प्रॉपर्टी अगर वहां से परचेज की गई है उसको पूरी तरह से सीज करने की पावर है ईडी के पास. Now other is to deal with any issues that is connected with money laundering in India. So these are some of the power that is given under the PMLA to the enforcement directorate. Now looking into the cases, the ED is basically investigating the cases under the PMLA. तो कुछ ये case के numbers हैं. The color code, the first blue in color indicate the charges, red in the charge filed and person arrested. You can see the number has again increased for 2021 and 2022. Close to 1,180 person cases were reported and 144 were reported and 54 person were arrested. So this is a detail from the annual report of the Ministry of Finance. Now section 50 of PMLA, again important for both prelims and mains examination. इस तरह के जो point है वो prelims और mains perspective से दोनों important है. So what is the point that you should note here? So as per the section 50 of the PMLA, it empowers the authority, that is the ED, एंड ऑफिसर्स ऑफ इन्फोर्समेंट डायरेक्टेड टू समन एनी पर्सन, किसी भी इंडिविजुअल को समन कर सकते हैं टू गिव एन एविडेंस और प्रोड्यूस अ रिकॉर्ड. सो दिस इज अ पावर which ED derives under section 50 of the PMLA, right? Now, all persons summoned are bound to answer the question. जो भी जिन लोगों को भी समन किया जाएगा उनको मैंडेटरी आना पड़ेगा and they are bound, right? So they are, the word here is they are bound to come, right? And produce their document whatsoever is required, and even to they have to cooperate with the enforcement directorate in performing their basically during the inquiry, in course of inquiry, and following which अगर वो इस तरह से नहीं करते हैं then they can be liable to penalize under the PMLA. तो एक तरह से आप कह सकते हैं कि जो इन्फोर्समेंट डायरेक्टेड है उसके पास एक अच्छी पावर मिलती है अंडर द सेक्शन 50A ऑफ PMLA. Now, Supreme Court के क्या observations हैं in this regard? What the Supreme Court has categorically stated, the SC had noted that money laundering, जो issues है money laundering की, is one of the heinous crime for a country, right? Which not only affect the social and economic fabric of the nation, but also tend to promote a heinous effect such as terrorism. Terrorism के बढ़ने की भी खतरा होती है. Even offenses related to NDPS Act. NDPS Act के cases काफ़ी ज़्यादा recent में report भी हुए. So this is to ensure कि इस तरह के cases को avoid किया जा सके. And the Supreme Court has upheld the constitutional provisions जहाँ पे कुछ specific sections हैं PMLA के, that is section 5, section 8, section 15, 17 and 19 of PMLA, which relates to ED power to arrest, attach, seize and search, right? You don't need to get into detail of this all the sections, right? But अगर आप इतनी भी चीज़ों को highlight करते हैं अपने mains examination में, specifically in mains, then this would be sufficient. Now, Prevention of Money Laundering Act में 2012 में कुछ changes की गई है, although some changes were also brought in 2019, but some of the major part were already started in 2012 itself. तो इस section के अंदर जो section 3 है under the PMLA, mere possession or proceeds of the crime is now an offense. अगर किसी ने individual ने कुछ पैसे लिए हैं, उसको possess भी किए हैं किसी individual के behalf पे, तो भी वो इसके अंदर में माना जाएगा. अब recent में कई cases आपने देखे होंगे. Now it means that if X has deposited or detained money in the account of Y, then Y will also be liable to be punished. तो जिस individual ने crime किया और जिसने उसको aid किया है, both will be liable to be punished under the PMLA Act, right? And 30 lakh threshold limit for initiating the money laundering cases for the economic offences done with way. Or now a person can be booked for laundering even for 10,000 if it violates the 30 list under the act, right? और penalty में क्या क्या चीजें include की गई है? So the rigorous imprisonment of 3 years and up to 7 years. So this can extend up to 7 years of imprisonment, and no upper limit for the cases which is filed above 5 lakh rupees. So this is something that a point that you should take a note of. Now moving to the other news, bill to create a statutory framework for NADA, that is National Anti-Doping Agency. This particular news is important for General Studies paper 2, that is government policies and intervention for the development of various sectors and issues arising from its design and implementations. So the Lok Sabha has recently passed a bill that seeks to create a statutory power. किस तरह की power दी जाएगी? Statutory power दी जाएगी for operating the National Anti-Doping Agency. जो NADA है, basically NADA will be provided with the statutory power, right? And even उसके साथ साथ जो और भी important organization है, like National Dope Testing Laboratory and other laboratories, which will be the part of it, will be provided with the statutory framework. And even this bill called for formation of National Board for Anti-Doping in Sports to strengthen the anti-doping activities in sports, right? We have been reported with some cases in sports as well, be it's any cases, any अगर आप बात करें मल्टीपल स्पोर्ट्स ऐसे हैं जहाँ पे केसेस रिपोर्ट किए गए, तो ये सारी चीज़ों को मॉनिटर करेगी. Currently almost 6,000 samples have been tested this year for the anti-doping. So the bill called for empowering the NADA, that is National Anti-Doping Agency को powerful बनाने की बात की गई है under this bill. So the bill seeks that NADA will be provided with the power to investigate. तो investigations की power उनके पास होगी. They will have the power to levy sanctions for any anti-doping rule violation. अगर किसी भी sports में किसी sports person ने violations किए rule की, तो उन पे वो sanctions लगा सकते हैं. Any disciplinary procedures to be adopted, and the power to inspect. तो inspections की power को और basically NADA को बढ़ा करके दिया. The sample collections and sharing of a free flow of the information is under the jurisdiction that makes NADA more powerful body, right? So this is a logo of NADA. You can see this National Anti-Doping Agency, and the theme of this agency is play fair, right? So this can be important for many other competitive examination also. Now countries that has anti-doping laws, कौन से ऐसे countries हैं जहाँ पे anti-doping law already operated है? So this country include United States, followed by China, Australia, Korea and Japan. So these are the country that has anti-doping laws. तो अब India भी इस countries में शुमार होगी where it will have its stringent rules in terms of doping, and even call for testing laboratories that will empower to give result more authentic and as earliest as possible, right? So these are some of the rules that government has come up with. A Center to Amend Warehouse Act. This particular news is important for General Studies Paper 3 under the topic Issues Related to Direct and Indirect Farm Subsidies and Minimum Support Price Public Distribution System. And even you can use this particular news for the General Studies Paper 2 where government policies and intervention are concerned. So the Food and Public Distribution Ministry has recently proposed an amendment, which calls for Warehouse Development and Regulation Act 2017 है उसको change की जाएगी, right? And this proposed amendment will make registrations and godown, जो godowns होंगे, compulsory होगी उनको अपने खास करके registration को maintain करना, and it will also call for sharply raising the penalty if the desired requirement is not made. So first part is that the registration part is mandatory, and second it called for a penal provisions, right? Now the current provision of registration की बात करें, अभी present में किस तरह से registration होती है? At present the registration of the warehouse development authority is then optional. So अभी तक के लिए optional, it is not mandatory, right? Now from now it will be mandatory. Now after the proposed amendment, which is yet to be declared, तो government अभी इसको declare करने वाली है. So once it is declared, registration of all third party throughout the country would be taken in the phased manner, and this will become mandatory, and the optional criteria will be ruled out. So every individual warehouse has to register themselves. Now proposed amendments में अगर बात करें, what are the important amendments that is proposed? So first is call for simplified registration process. जो warehouse की registration है उसको easy की जाएगी, right? So this process call for easy of the registration process, and it will also call for accepting the negotiable receipt only on the electronic form. So everything will be in electronic format, and more power to regulate warehouse development and regulatory authority to investigate, take enforcement actions, impose penalty and adjudications. तो ये सारी powers जो हैं वो बेसिकली दी जाएंगी ताकि कोई भी केसेस अगर ऐसा रिपोर्ट हुए तो उनके रेजोल्यूशंस एट द अर्लीस्ट मिले, जो भी ग्रीवांसेस एड्रेस होती हैं उनको भी जल्द से जल्द एड्रेस किया जा सके. नाउ एग्जेम्पशंस फ्रॉम द प्रिजन्स, जो पहले प्रिजन्स की पीनल प्रोविजंस थी अब उनको रिप्लेस कर दिया गया है. नाउ दिस हैज बीन रिप्लेस्ड विद द पेनल्टी अमाउंट. सो द प्रपोज्ड अमेंडमेंट बेसिकली टू द वेयरहाउस डेवलपमेंट रेगुलेशन एक्ट 2007 will do away from 3 years of rigorous imprisonment, but not really rigorous was there, but it was an imprisonment which was there. Now the suggestion is that if there is any violation, they are liable to get fined, penalized monetarily, right? And according to the official, the Food Ministry has already sought an inter-ministerial comment to propose the changes on the act, which will be soon approved by the government. So when it is approved, there will be monetary penalization which will be there, and the फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल जो प्रिजन्स थी 3 years की जो प्रिजन्स थी उसमें एग्जेम्पशंस मिल सकती है. नाउ सेंटर इनिशिएट वर्क ऑन कंज्यूमर स्पेंडिंग सर्वे, समथिंग इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर जनरल स्टडीज पेपर 3 and paper 2 actually. This is important for government policies and intervention for the development of various sector and issues arising from it, design and implementation. Although this can be important for general studies paper 3 precisely, where Indian economy and issues related to planning, mobilization, resource growth and development is concerned. So the center has initiated the process of conducting the quinnial household survey. का मतलब होता है हर 5 साल में जो सर्वे की जाती है, right? So the survey was conducted earlier in 2017-18, but its findings were not published, citing the data quality concern. And even now, it is something which was also demanded from the stakeholders कि जो public consumer spending के reports है वो publish की जाए. So this is the latest survey that will be coming up with. Now field work करने की बात की गवर्नमेंट ने. So all that survey that will be conducted will be based on field work. So the Ministry of Statistical and Program Implementation, they have said that this is for the first time this will involve 3 visits, 3 visits होंगी जहाँ पे ये पैटर्न ऑफ स्पेंडिंग को देखा जाएगा. हर एक इंडिविजुअल के हाउस होल्ड पे फील्ड सर्वे की जाएगी so that they can have the accurate data. And a questionnaire has also been developed for this survey that has been tweaked to captures the item they have received, the free from the government welfare programs के कितने benefits हुए हैं, what are the things that essentially required, किस तरह की spending pattern है, out of the pocket expenses की अगर बात करें, out of pocket expenses की अगर बात करें वो किस तरह से चल रही है. So everything will be taken into consideration. So what is the aim of this survey? This is again very important that you have to take a note of कि survey की क्या importance है. So it is conducted first and foremost, मैंने आपको बता दिया starting में, this is conducted every 5 years. And this survey will use to arrive an estimate of poverty level, India में क्या poverty level है, as well as review the key economic indicators like GDP. तो GDP के figures में किस तरह की actual contributions है लोगों के and how it is impacting, what is the real growth that is anticipated, उसके बारे में भी बात होगी. कल आपके साथ मैंने एडिटोरियल में भी डिस्कस किया that GDP number is not the real numbers that indicates the real growth. So उसी prospects में ये सारी चीज़ों को भी देखी जाएगी. Now the results of the survey will be utilized for updating the consumer basket and the base revision of the consumer price index. तो जो CPI है उसकी भी revisions में मदद मिलेगी. And the survey of the household consumption expenditure has also been planned to collect the discrete level informations from the household and food and non-food items. So food और non-food items में किस तरह की expenses pattern है, how much an individual is investing, इन सारों चीज़ों को क्वेश्चनर के थ्रू इस रिपोर्ट में कंपाइल किया जाएगा. राइट, सो दिस इज अ मेन एम. Now moving to the editorial of the day, that is a digital pharmacist. This is an important for general studies paper 2, that is issues related to development and management of health. A brilliant editorial basically that will give you an insight about the digital pharmacist and the recent rules and laws. तो पूरी एडिटोरियल की अगर थीम की बात करें, like where it is relying, so this editorial first it is issues of commerce, focus on medical devices, bill storming, issues related to unqualified medical practitioners and the way forward. तो पूरी एडिटोरियल की अगर थीम की बात करें, so the entire editorial focuses upon the draft drug medical device and cosmetic bill 2022. So some background, recently the center has introduced the draft drug medical device and cosmetic bill 2022 to replace the 1940 drugs and cosmetic act, right? So this is a big changes that government is bringing with this bill. So the prime objective of this bill is to regulate the e-pharmacies. जिस तरह से e-pharmacies और medical devices की तादाद बढ़ी है कंट्री में, उसको regulations की भी बातें की गई है गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से. So this will call for penalties including the imprisonment, falling to pay the compensation for any injury or death of the clinical trials for both drugs and medical devices. अगर किसी drugs या medical device से किसी individual की death होती है तो उस particular companies या जो भी individual होंगे उनको penalize किया जाएगा, and if they are not liable they would be also imprisoned in that particular case. तो कुछ strict rules government लेकर के आई है, we'll see, and some critic was also there that how effective this is going to be in a longer run. So issues of e-commerce की अगर बात करें, so the first and foremost is that the major feature in this bill that affects the consumer related to e-commerce. जो भी individual e-commerce के साथ medicine या फिर किसी equipment device को operate करते हैं, so what are the challenges, how it should be there, right? So there are several pros and cons of online sales. First, the authentication issue, and second is the consultation issue, right? So the present online sales of the medical accounts for the fractions of total pharma sales in India, but this forecast to grow exponentially. जो numbers है ये anticipate की जा रही है कि आने वाले time में ये और आगे grow करेगी, right? And the sale of substandard counterfeit drugs, particularly the small towns, have remained a widespread concern because consultation नहीं होती और हर एक individual किसी भी तरह से over the counter medicine equipments या device लेने की कोशिश करता है. So this aims to regulate the entire malpractices. Now the second advantage of this e-commerce basically could be fulfilling the legal requirement जहाँ पे they have to provide a bill to the consumer और वो बिल वो कंज्यूमर को भी देंगे और साथ के साथ अपने पास भी रखेंगे, ताकि ये मेंशन हो सके कि उसने एक्चुअल जो डेट ऑफ परचेज है, एक्सपायरी है, दैट हैज़ टू बी मेंटेन इन अ रिकॉर्ड. Now, in case of e-commerce registration, the pharmacies can require to enroll with the center and state government, जो कि काफ़ी बड़ी प्रॉब्लम है states के लिए, right? So registration part is a big hole. Now, loophole that has existed, तो उस loophole को खत्म करने के लिए registration को mandatory किया गया. Now, some Indian pharmacies outlet have also begun facilitating and generating the prescription after teleconsultation. तो teleconsultation में भी लोगों को medicine दी जाती है, and even we are not very sure that whether that practitioner who is giving you advice is a certified MBBS doctor or not, right? So this is something that issues are arisen, and some of the cases of fraud were also reported. Now focus on medical devices. जो भी medical devices हैं, like the draft proposes a greater focus on medical devices which include the apparatus like stents, joint implants, pacemaker, catheters. ये सारी चीज़ें जो हैं उनकी regulations पे ध्यान दी जाएगी इस बिल के अंदर. And the rules for the medical device notified in 2017, but now government ने इसमें changes किए. एक statutory medical devices technically advisory board भी बनाई जाएगी, that will be looking into the important aspects, जहाँ पे कुछ experts होंगे atomic energies के, science and technology, electronics, and other people belonging to the biomedical technology field to guide how the actual rules and procedures should be. Now, bill की कुछ shortcoming के बारे में भी discussions हैं. So the draft bill does not address the need to stop the continuous mismanagement which is there at the wholesale and retail drug. तो जो भी wholesalers हैं, basically the wholesalers and retail drugs, इनमें regulations की काफ़ी ज़्यादा ज़रूरत है, because this is a nightmare for the drugs controller also. जो states के drug controller हैं, उनके लिए भी ये काफ़ी बड़ी problems है. Now the rule 64(2) of the Drugs and Cosmetic Acts has laid down that the wholesale drug license can be given a qualified pharmacist. ये सिर्फ और सिर्फ qualified pharmacist को ही देने की provisions रखी गई है, जिनके पास कम से कम graduations की degree हो B Pharma की and 1 year of experience with the drug sales, right? But again, these things also need to be addressed, which was not the part of the bill, right? So these are some of the important shortcomings. Now, issues of unqualified medical practitioners की अगर बात करें, according to the study which was done by the Siv Nadar University in 2017, जो unqualified medical practitioner है इंडिया में, it is described that how it is easy that a drugs can be prescribed to anyone and over the counter वो purchase भी की जा रही है, जिसके legal consequences होने की भी ज़रूरत है, because if someone is selling such drug which is prohibited, it should be actually prohibited, और ऐसा ना हो कि किसी ऑनलाइन कंसल्टेशन पे आप फार्म इजी या फिर किसी तरह के ऐसे ऐप्स पे जा करके आप आराम से उस फार्मेसी से ये शॉप को बेसिकली उस मेडिसिन को परचेस कर पाएँ. सो दिस बेसिकली कॉल्स फॉर द रेगुलेशन. ये अनक्वालिफाइड मेडिकल प्रैक्टिशनर्स को कर्ब्स करने की भी ज़रूरत है. एंड इवन द इंडिविजुअल हिमसेल्फ पोज अ जीरो नॉलेज अबाउट द फार्मास्यूटिकल्स एंड ही इज़ नॉट बॉदर अबाउट द स्टेट रेगुलेटर्स. तो ये कुछ ब्रीच हैं, जो लूप होल्स थे, गवर्नमेंट ने उसको बेसिकली कवर करने की बात की है. एंड दिस मस्ट बी स्टॉप एट इमीडिएटली, which will definitely help the pharmaceutical sector to strengthen it, and it will call for more robust approach where it will call for saving a lot more life, और unpractices unethical जो practice हैं उनको पूरी तरह से रोक लगाई जाएगी. Now way forward की अगर बात करें, the separate chapter of medical devices which is there will give a distinct treatment to the line of international practice to boost the quality of the consumer and expectations of the stakeholder. So this is how things will be moving forward. एंड इफ़ यू राइटिंग इन मेंस पेपर, आप इस तरह के जो इंपॉर्टेंट कंसर्न्स हैं जो इंडिविजुअल को लेकर के, स्टेक होल्डर्स को लेकर, वो सारे बातों को भी हाईलाइट कर सकते हैं. सो दिस इज हाउ द वे फॉरवर्ड कैन बी कंक्लूडेड. Now moving ahead with the MCQ questions of the day. Before I proceed, just to tell you the answers of yesterday questions. For first question, the correct option is B. For second question, the correct option is C. Today's MCQ for practice, आपको बताना है the headquarter of United Nations Human Rights Council is located at. This is a basic, very easy question. I think most of you must be aware of this answer. It's Canada, Berlin, Geneva, or Brazil. So do check it out. Second, the OTT content in India is being monitored by which among the following ministries? Many a times students tend to confuse. So आप देख लें, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, Ministry of Home Affairs, Ministry of Law and Justice, or Ministry of Education. So do check it out for the correct option. This was all about for the daily news and editorial analysis followed by the MCQ questions. If you have any other concern, do let me know. I'll be more than happy to assist you. For time being, I'm signing off. Thank you so much for watching this video.